So, this case study is a pretty good example of how analyzing the performance across the match types and optimizing the budget allocation accordingly can make a significant impact on your overall account performance, both in terms of scalability and profitability. So, when we started working on this account, if we talk about the week prior and the match types performance, then the brand was spending most of the budget on the phrase match, close to about 47% of the total budget, and the ACOS was relatively higher than any other match type at 40.7%. If we talk about their target ACOS, it was 35% or less. And we see that the overall ACOS was slightly over 35%, and brand was spending about 37.4K in total in advertising with 106K in the ad sales. Other than the phrase match, exact match had 14K in ad spend, and the ACOS was much better at 32%, which made exact to be one of the promising ones. And we also know that exact is the most controlled one. But then we also look at the broad match, which had a better performance than exact. But again, we have to also consider the ad spend, which is very low. And when we talk about an ad spend at this scale, ACOS could be different. So we needed to see that as well when we were experimenting with the different match types and the budget allocation in the first week. And then if we look at the auto campaign, it had a 34% ACOS and ad spend was 1.8K, the lowest, and ad sales were 5.4K. So overall, we wanted to increase the advertising revenue for this brand, and then we also wanted to grow it more profitably. So in the first week, we needed to make a decision on which match type we are pushing most of our increased budget, and then how we are also optimizing the current setup for the maximum ROI. So what we did was we did not change the ad spend on the phrase, we did not increase on the phrase match, but we did increase on the exact match. We took from 14K to 19K, and the ad spend went up from 44K to 56K. The ACOS was still lesser than 35% at 34.2%. We also added some more spend on the auto campaign, and then we also optimized the match types, and auto responded really very well because from 34% it went down to 22%. Even previously, if you look at even 2 weeks prior, then the ACOS was high on the auto campaign. And the optimization was possible through primarily the introduction of the negative targeting. Then we also increased the ad spend on the broad match from 3.8K to 5K, and we ended up with more sales. The ACOS went up only slightly by about 2%, and both these match types were actually contributing positively to the overall sales and the profitability. But our ACOS was still slightly on the higher side. But then we are also talking about just the week one, where we are experimenting and trying to understand how the different match types respond when we add more budget to them. The next week is even more interesting now, because in the second week, what we do is we keep the overall ad spend pretty much the same. So firstly, like in the week one, our ad spend had gone up by about 7K, from 37K to 44K, and the ad sales, they went up from 106K to 124K. So we were able to add 18K in the ad revenue without impacting much the A cost, though we also knew that it was still on the higher side. So week two is interesting because we actually dropped the overall ad spend slightly by $500, and then we only make changes to the budget allocation across the match type, and that helps us add some additional revenue with a much reduced ACOS. And here are the next week's results. So we continue to add more to the exact match because, again, it proves to be scalable as we add more ad spend to it. And yes, with some optimization, we bring the overall ACOS down further to 33%. And then we take the ad spend from the phrase match this time to add that extra budget on the exact match. So phrase match is now just 10K, and the ACOS is at the margin at 35%. And then we also add some of this budget to auto match, where we take the ad spend from 2.3K to 3.1K, and now the ad sales go further up from 10.6K to 16.5K. And the ACOS drops further from 22% to 19%. So this gets more and more scalable. And at this point, it's contributing very positively to the overall sales and profits as well. So now if we talk about the total ad spend, it's $500 less at 44.2K, and our sales are now higher from 124K to 139K, and our A cost is actually reduced from 35.9K to 32%. So overall, by understanding the match type, this very simple strategy, by understanding the match types and readjusting the budget allocation, we were able to add additional 33K in revenue in 2 weeks' time with a reduced ACOS. So this is really good example of how understanding the match type is a really good strategy. And one of the key reasons for the auto campaigns to be performing so well lies in something called the CPC. If you look at the CPC on the auto campaign, that's much lesser, less than 50% compared to the exact match. So auto campaign, if they're properly optimized with the use of negative targeting and bid management, we can actually improve their sales significantly, and they could be contributing so much to the overall performance. In fact, at some point, exact match could not be as profitable, and then we could actually diversify our budget across the match types, and especially we could performance. And that's why, like, one of the strategies we used to do a lot last year is set up auto broadly targeted campaigns, harvest keywords, and then start targeting them using exact. This year, however, this strategy doesn't perform as well as it used to, because I think Amazon seems to be targeting or competing exact with the exact, and a lot of competitors are now targeting exact with much higher CPCs. That's why auto targeting, it kind of becomes much more profitable or much more cheaper at a much lower CPC. And that's why, even despite more clicks to sales conversion ratio, we are still able to grow sales more profitably with this match type, because the CPC is way lesser. And then CPC is like, it's in the order, like after phrase, after exact, it's phrase, and then further less on broad, and then further less on auto. Now in some cases, broad could be performing better than auto, or again, in this case, auto is performing better, and then exact also. So it's very important to understand the different match types by performing an analysis and then making changes to the budget, because the key lies in the budget allocation. Now, also not to mention, what I've noticed with the broadly targeted match types like auto and broad is their reach, which is very quick. If you usually compare, or if you set up two campaigns, one is broad and one is exact, broad campaigns tends to pick up more quickly. So it's also like it has a much quicker reach, and which is another plus point about these match types. So definitely worthwhile including these in your overall targeting strategy.